morning. I'd like to call to order the September 24th public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm Rich Simmons, Chair of the Commission. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Please state and spell your name clearly. If you're here to speak for or against the project, your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so we take some time now to summarize your comments. Following public comment, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. The applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. After the public hearing is closed, no further testimony can be given. The commissioners will then discuss the case and make their decision based upon Chapter 27 of the City Code of Ordinances, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review Committee comments, and the testimony given today at this public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence all cell phones. We'll start with the introduction of the commissioners. On my right, please.
Good morning, Susan Klaus-Smith, architect.
Good morning, Richard Cahill, general contractor.
Good morning, Chase Corley.
Okay. And from staff, we have Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Alexis Guzman, Heather Bonds, and from legal, Dana Crosby Collier. Okay, we have a new commissioner here. I'd like to give him an opportunity to say a brief hello and an introduction and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name's Chase. A little bit about me. I've been in the Tampa Bay area now for about 10 years. I graduated from the University of Tampa in 2018 with an international business and finance degree. Also have 2 master's degrees from UTampa, an MBA and a Master of Science in Finance. My background is in finance and business. Some other things about me: I sponsored the Jimi Hendrix marker, which is downtown in Curtis Hickson Park, in 2019. Some other organizations I'm a part of are Around the World with St. Jude Gala Committee, Tampa Theater Wine Fest Committee, Guild at the Dolly, and also UT Board of Counselors. And eBoard really holds a special place in my heart, whether it's the people, the cigars, the protected chickens, and also the historic streetcars. I was actually fortunate enough last year to be an official streetcar motorman and operate the historic streetcars. But just very happy to be here and serve, so thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Very good, thank you. Mr. Fernandez.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to this morning's public hearing, and welcome to our applicants and those viewing us from home. And welcome to Commissioner Corley also, and thank you for volunteering your time and expertise to our commission. I look forward to working with you. A couple brief announcements. We will be holding a special hearing on October 1st, 2024 at 9 a.m. That is to accommodate the cases that were on the August 27th public hearing, which unfortunately we did not have a quorum for. So we are ready for that. We do have a quorum for October 1st, and we appreciate everyone's cooperation in bringing that meeting together. Also, I do have the staff approvals to enter into the record. Those are provided to the clerk, and you accept those by motion at the end of the meeting. In your packets, you have a copy of the Bricks and Mortar, which is our monthly newsletter. We do provide that to a list of individuals that we mail out to monthly, as well as posting that on our website. So I hope you enjoy that. And also this morning, I did want to just take a few moments to update you on an ordinance change that's underway for the Ybor City parking lots. So I will begin by asking our legal counsel to provide you just a brief overview and summary of the process.
Good morning. Dana Crosby Collier from the City Attorney's Office. This morning we're going to provide you with an update to the Ybor parking language. This language has been in the works for quite a while. It was part of the January 2024 cycle, and they pulled it out of that cycle so that the council could further review it and make additional revisions to the language. So it traveled separately from the January cycle. The first reading was on August the 8th, and the second reading was on September the 5th. It has an effective date of 10/15/24. Primarily, the council's focus was to enhance security, fencing, clarify signage and reduce some signage on the parking lots, and also enhance buffering. It also creates a plan that our parking operators will have to submit to the city on an annual basis, describing certain elements of their parking project, the security and whatnot on the project. And with that, Dennis is going to go through a brief PowerPoint describing the changes to the ordinance, and then we'll be available, both of us, for questions.
If we could go to the PowerPoint, please. You got it? Okay.
Yep.
As Dana mentioned, the discussion of updating the code for Ybor City parking lots began by a motion from City Council, particularly keying in on the personnel requirements for security and the enforcement of those requirements. Lighting was also another issue to ensure safety. It began to expand, though, into other areas of the code, and so we have a much broader modification than what was originally anticipated, I think, through their motion. The first reading of the ordinance occurred on August 8th, and then the second reading on September 5th, where the ordinance was adopted, with an effective date of October 15th, 2024. So anyone not in compliance with the current section of 178 by October 15th will need to meet the new requirements. So a few of the key highlights: if a parking lot receives approval from the Barrio Latino Commission, if it has that approval in the form of a certificate of appropriateness, then on October 15th, those lots will be considered to be conforming and in compliance with their pre-approved site plan and details. So those, those are essentially pre-approved and won't have to expand their approval to the new code. New lots after that effective date of October 15th will need to comply. Part of that compliance is that these will be processed as special use 2, which requires a public hearing at City Council for the establishment of that parking lot, and it would entail a recommendation from the Barrio Latino Commission prior to that City Council hearing. So that's one of the key reasons I wanted to bring that to you, because you may be seeing these in the future where that process didn't exist in that form before. All applications for principal use parking lots shall be reviewed for a certificate of appropriateness, so they still would need to meet the design standards in addition to all the other reviewers, transportation, stormwater, natural resources that are layered into these reviews. The vehicle use buffer area will be 5-foot landscape area with a 4-foot transparent fence approved by the BLC. In the prior code, there were diagrams and depictions of what was approvable. We have deferred more to the guidelines now and to the board's decisions, being that these are going to be coming to you, and they're not as prescribed as they were in design. Interior landscaping will be required for lots larger than 7,500 square feet. Permanent irrigation will be required. Prior to that, you could do hand water irrigation, but with the new enhanced landscaping requirements, we didn't feel that that was feasible, so there will be a permanent system required. A 15-foot buffer will be required when lots are adjacent to residential use. So there are those situations with some of those smaller lots where they are near or but a residence, and so there's enhanced buffering required in those situations. And then there are limitations to size and the number of signs, which I'll go over in just a moment. And then, as I mentioned, security requirements, which I will touch on in just a moment. The vehicle use area and buffers, I think, were a key issue of discussion throughout this entire process, both with the public and with city council. The decision was to have landscape buffers between vehicle use areas and right-of-ways, which would be 5 foot in dimension, and then allow for a 4-foot transparent fence. So that's would be really what you're seeing from the street. Buffers consisting of tree plantings on 40 feet on center, and shrubs planted along the entire length of the lot will also be required. For use-to-use buffers between parking lot and residential uses, that's where we have that enhanced 15-foot buffer with a 6-foot solid fence. So that would be a fence that's appropriate to the district, and a 15-foot buffer to provide some separation there. Buffers can consist of evergreen trees planted 20 foot on center, lawn and ground cover with low shrubs. Use-to-use buffers between parking lots and non-residential uses would be a reduced 5-foot buffer, which was consistent with the prior code. And once again, that would be composed of trees and shrubs planted incrementally along that distance. Signs, in addition to, there's a number of sign issues that we were really cognizant of and trying to accommodate. Many of these signs that are required for these lots are mandated through the state legislature. So in addition to identification and branding signs, we have signs that have to deal with like towing and tenants' right, your parking tenants' rights, and other disclosures that the parking lot operators have to accommodate. So in addition to any sign that's required under Florida statute, each lot owner shall post the following signs in all parking lots, and no signs required under this ordinance will be placed in the right-of-way. So one sign no less than 6 square feet and no greater than 12 square feet at each entrance stating the cost of parking, the hours of operation, the physical address of the lot owner, and the contact information for the operator. One sign which will measure 18 inches by 24 inches, advising that it's unlawful for any person to consume, assist, or aid another in consuming any alcoholic beverage on the property in accordance with section 14-64. And then a new caveat of the ordinance is an annual operations and security plan, which deals with the uniform security guards that are going to be required on site. Those are going to be between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. from Thursday through Saturday. And starting in January, the lot owners will need to submit a plan stating their intent to continue to operate the parking lot, an illustration of the site plan, and a photo of the parking lot showing that it's been continually in compliance with the Barrio Latino Commission Certificate of Appropriateness, a copy of their contract with the security company, photos of their posted signs, and an affidavit attesting to the compliance with the requirements of the code. Those will be provided to the Barrio Latino Commission staff and then coordinated among other reviewers in the city. And that concludes my overview. Are there any questions or? Yes.
So as they move through the compliance process for this first round this next year, will we start seeing those, or are those usually going to be through the staff approval process and they'll only come before us if it's related to a development nearby or something?
So if they have a pre-approved certificate of appropriateness prior to October 15th, and it's minor in scope, then we would handle that as staff as far as their annual security and compliance plans and those type of things. If they make any type of change to that pre-approved certificate of appropriateness, or if it's a new lot, then that's going to come to you at a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
What would, I saw the term 4-foot transparent fence, is that for the Barrio standards for the district, or is that, typically we deal with, could be iron, could be wood.
Right.
Anything like that?
Right. So previously in the code, there was illustrations of a picket fence and an aluminum fence, and so we decided to get away from that, and since these are going to be coming to the board, and allow the board to determine what was particularly appropriate for the context of that lot. Typically, 4-foot transparent is a term that's used throughout the city for front yard fences, and that's usually like a picket fence would be considered transparent, or an aluminum fence. You know, the other side of that would be opaque, which would be, you know, that there wouldn't be any sort of light traveling through it. That would not be permissible. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for
Thank you,
your
Mr. Fernandez.
time on that, and we will move on through the agenda. Our next item is the conflicts of interest and ex parte communication disclosure, and our legal counsel will lead that discussion.
Good morning. I'm Dana Crosby Collier from the City Attorney's Office. I'd like to ask if any member has a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this morning.
I have none.
Thank you. And has any member engaged in an ex parte communication relating to any item on the agenda?
I have not.
Thank you.
Very good. We do have some continuations to deal with this morning. These, some of these are from our August 27th hearing, which are going to be composing the cases on the October 1st special hearing. So the 4 cases, BLC-2490, 24-147, 24-121, and 24-56. Those can be continued by one motion to the October 1st, 2024 BLC public hearing at 9 a.m., please.
I'd like to move to recommend, move to grant a continuance in case BLC 24-00000090 for the property located at 2216 East 10th Avenue, BLC 24-00000147 for the property located at 2318 East 12th Avenue, BLC 24-00000121 for the property located at 2205 East 3rd Avenue, and BLC 24-00000056 for the property located at 1301 North 22nd Street and 2205 East 3rd Avenue, all be continued to Tuesday, October 1st, public hearing at 9 a.m.
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we do have a kind of a standalone continuance going to the October 22nd, 2024 public hearing at 9 a.m. for BLC 2442, so we would need a motion for that as well.
Move to grant a continuance in case BLC 24-000042 for the property located at 1506 North 15th Street be continued to Tuesday, October 22, 2024, hearing at 9 a.m. Did we change it to the 27th? It says the
22nd.
22nd.
It's all good, it's all good. To the October 22nd, 2024, hearing at 9 a.m.
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. We're now ready for the swear-in. Anyone who is going to be presenting today or providing testimony, if you could please stand and raise your right hand for the swear-in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you'll be providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. With that, we are ready for our first case, and Ms. Bonds will introduce the case. Thank you.
Good morning. May I have the PowerPoint up, please? Good morning, Heather Bonds, Historic Preservation Specialist. I'm presenting BLC 24-00000140, 1208 East 14th Street. This is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction of a duplex and site improvements. I'll now present the photo presentation. The property is located in Ybor City Historic District. It is on a vacant lot there on 14th. Here's the 1929 Sanborn map. You can see this block had several dwellings on it. Just to the south is where the interstate now is. This property was demolished prior to districting and the interstate. So here is that block now. You can see it is mostly vacant properties with the exception to the property to the west, which has 2 shotgun houses. Here's the subject property. This is the property to the east. To the south is the interstate. These are the shotgun property houses located to the west. Those were rehabilitated a few years ago. Looking to the west of the property, this is towards the rear of the property. Looking west on the street, looking east on the street, this is the back alleyway, which will be improved. Part of the alleyway again. This is looking north on the opposite side of the alleyway. And the applicant will now present the project to you all.
Good morning. My name is Kim Hedlund. I'm here from Wilder Architecture, and we're representing the owners Angel and Regina Gonzalez. As you can see here, the proposal is for a new duplex located on the vacant site. The block on the south side is primarily composed of vacant lots, with the exception of the 2 historic casitas located immediately to the west. So the proposed duplex is setback, it meets the setback requirements of the YC2 zoning and is consistent with the adjacent blocks. The casitas to the west are located about 8.5 feet, between 8'2" and 8'6", back from the property line. I do want to use this slide to go through a few of the comments that we received at the design review meeting. The first being regarding sidewalk that is required. There is an existing sidewalk located in front of this parcel and the parcels to the west. It is a 5-foot sidewalk, and there is a green space recovery. We have revised the driveway to include the flares that are necessary per Chapter 22. And there was a comment regarding green space. We have completed the calculations. I believe 25% is required for duplexes, and we are providing at this point 33.4% green space. As you can see, we have a driveway that is accessed from the rear alley and a driveway that's accessed from 14th Avenue, allowing 2 off-street parking spaces. The alley will be improved, either part of this project or part of the project that was already permitted in 2022. The floor plan, it's traditionally divided into 2 units that run front to back. In terms of the elevations, we are proposing a traditional raised structure. Sorry, there we go. Raised structure, metal roof that is comparable to the properties to the west, the corrugated metal roof. Those 2 casitas were restored by the same owner. Wood siding, attic venting, double hung wood windows, half light, wood front doors, crawl space screens, and brick wrapped piers. On the rear and the side, we are proposing a canopy with brackets, as you can see here, and a side and a rear wood stair for access. do have transoms at the front door and a wood deck at the front porch. Again, continuing to the east and the west elevations, fairly traditional window pattern with smaller windows being in the more private spaces and double hung windows in the more public spaces, crawl space screens, brick wrapped piers, and exposed rafter tails. And then our front porch columns are column wraps, GFRC column wraps comparable to the ones that were utilized on the properties next door, and engaged columns at the front, at that front elevation. In terms of the wall section, this describes the raised structure, again, the double hung windows, the wood siding, and the metal roof. Again, some details of the brackets at those canopies and the crawl space screens that have vertical, sort of vertical wood pattern. In terms of, let me see if I can shrink this down just a little bit. In terms of the material palette, again, all light cream and white neutrals, wood front door, and a green color used for both the crawl space screens and the wood decking. Again, the corrugated metal roof system, historic pendants, and again, the double hung wood windows and wood door. I think that concludes my presentation.
As for the staff report, staff found that this project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. And I can take any questions if you guys have questions for me or the applicant.
Thank you. Is anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this case? Seeing none, we can start with questions of the applicant, starting with Susan.
Can we go back to your site plan, please? Oh, actually, go to the next one. It'll be easier. The next one. Sorry. The next sheet, because it's larger. Thank you. I have a question about the primary drive, the one facing the primary street. Was there discussion with staff about pushing that drive back just a tad so that this car would stack? If there was a single vehicle, it would at least stack so that it's just shy of the primary elevation. Typically, we look to see if we can push that in so that if there is a single vehicle, I know if there were two stacked, that would be impossible, but getting that vehicle just shy of the primary elevation so that the porch is clear.
We are happy to take a look at that and push that back. We were fighting green space requirements.
Understood.
So we could look at something like pushing that further to the north, and then maybe utilizing ribbon drives to kind of recoup some of that required green space.
Another question, I'm seeing this more and more in my neighborhood with the influx of historic properties being replaced with drives at the front when they were in the rear. How long is that drive? Because we're having issues with cars overhanging and blocking sidewalks.
You know what, I don't know off the top of my head, but I will say it's probably in the range of 35 feet long.
Okay. At least if we could consider pushing that so at least one vehicle would be shy of the primary elevation, that would be great for the experience in the neighborhood. Other than that, I assume the two squares are the
Condensing
CUs for the
Correct.
2 units, correct? Okay. And then, so one unit has a stoop on the side and the other does not, okay. Is there a landscape plan for this at all? Trees or bushes at the primary elevation?
We'll meet the requirements of the basically the city ordinance requirements for landscaping, but we do not. We're just
Haven't put it
indicating-
together yet?
Correct.
Okay. That's it for me for now.
I have no questions.
And was there any fencing for the project?
Not included in this application. I would anticipate that the owner, as you can see here, the owner has included some metal fencing that's, I think, compatible with the district on the adjacent casitas. I would anticipate at some point he would come back and probably request that.
And then there's no railing, because the porches are under 30 inches, right?
Correct,
So-
we're 2'5".
Right, exactly, that's a little measurement. Okay, just wanted to confirm that. No further questions.
Thanks. So on your site plan, so to get from the driveway to the stoops, on the front unit, on the right unit, they'd go out to the front and walk on the sidewalk and get into the house. I think a previous iteration had another sidewalk to the back stoop or to the side stoop. Did that get omitted because of the landscape requirements?
We're up against that 25% green space.
25%?
Yeah, we can look at adding back in or kind of creatively working with a paver system to make that happen.
Yeah, I think maybe the ribbon drives will give you a little bit more flexibility there as well. And go to the elevations, please. Are both doors going to be 1/1 panels, like the top panel, or the back door is going to be solid?
Yes, so the front door is 1/1 light at the half light, and the rear is solid.
Solid, okay. Okay, and could you go to your wall section, please? So it seems, I'm a little concerned about the window being a little proud to the outside face. I think typically in those housing types, we see the windows recessed a little bit more to create more relief. Is that an accurate representation that you're gonna have them proud to the front? Is that something that we can move to the middle of the wall or back a little bit, just to get a little bit more relief?
Yeah, we can definitely look at the alignment within that wall to ensure that we have the correct recess there.
Okay. And on your piers, are they actually gonna be brick, or is it
We're wrapping with true brick.
a true brick, and then you have the infill screens in between? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, you have a few minutes if you'd like to summarize anything that we just discussed, or,
I think it's a straightforward project, and I appreciate the time today.
great, thank you. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing, and we can have a discussion of the case amongst ourselves. Mr. Quinn.
No, it's a very nice, straightforward project, as sort of mentioned, and then it echoes the historic neighborhood well, and yeah, it's nice to see something that's kind of more in scale with what's in the historic fabric than what we kind of typically see these days, so
Yeah.
I think it's nice.
I appreciate the mix, that there's a duplex being inserted into the property. Yeah, I have no real comments.
Any comments? Okay. Yeah, I think the things that we talked about, maybe, have the applicant work on those few things, work with staff on those items. But I think the project's very solid. It takes an underutilized property and at least puts a duplex on there, helping to get some housing back into the area. Yeah, I think we'll be ready for a motion.
All right, so motion to grant a certificate of appropriateness, final approval with conditions for, let's see, so move to grant certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 24-0000-140 for the property located at, where is it? 1208 East 14th Avenue, with the following conditions: that the applicant push the window into the center or back of the wall for more relief in the elevations, that the applicant look at using either a ribbon drive to create a sidewalk to connect the entrance at the front driveway, and to the front porch of the house, and look at pushing, allowing the the main street driveway to allow the car to not be proud of the front elevation as well. Was there anything else that I'm missing, maybe?
That was it.
I think that's it. All right. Because based on the finding of fact and the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that it meets the design criteria for new construction based on the height and width, facade width, setback, spacing, alignment, similarity of details and forms, and building materials within the Ybor City Design Guidelines.
A second the motion?
All in favor of said motion?
Aye.
Well, before we do that, there's
Yes.
been a number of conditions placed on the applicant. Let's just make sure that the applicant has acknowledged that they're in agreement with the conditions. They have. Okay, all in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Our next agenda item is BLC-24-0000-155. This is for the address of 1002 East 19th Avenue. Currently, it's a vacant parcel. The zoning attached to it is YC8. The request this morning is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a two-story single-family residence with site improvements. The approximate square footage of the structure is 1,800 square feet. Moving through the photo presentation, starting with a 1929 Sanborn map, you see the density in the immediate vicinity. Property in question is highlighted in the green box. It is a corner parcel on the corner of 19th Avenue and 10th Street. There is no alley associated with this subject site. This is our vicinity map. The red lines indicate the local historic district. The property in question is in the northwest corner of the district. And this is just an area. You see the density that is still current there. You see some of the canopy and the fabric around the subject site, once again on the corner of 19th Avenue and 10th Street. As I stated, it's an empty parcel. This is looking from 19th Avenue to the north. There is a tree, there's two trees on site. One tree is in question with natural resources that should remain. That is to the west portion. It's a shared tree. The property to the west is more of a higher-end home. There's a couple of higher-end homes here in the Ybor area that this request is in. This one has a high-end craftsman-style home with a porte-cochere, and it has a second story in the back. Just a couple of street shots so you get familiar with the area. This is 19th Avenue looking to the east. Turning around, you see that there is some parallel parking on the street. This is looking to the west, back towards Nebraska. Once again, focusing on the subject site, which is here. They're introducing a curb cut for their parking in the back. In Ybor City, for all single-family residents, one car is required, one parking spot is required. Anywhere else in the city of Tampa, there's two, so there's a reduction of parking here. Just bring that to your attention. As I stated, some of the vernacular within the neighborhood. This is another higher-end craftsman-style home with a porte-cochere, although it's shielded by some of the vegetation. And just directly across the street, you have a sister house to that. So you have a barreled entrance with some gingerbread up top with a porte-cochere, and then your vehicular access. So that concludes the photo presentation. At this time, I'll have the agent address the board.
Okay. Where's the HDMI cable? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, sir. All right. Good morning. My name is Juan Quiñones, and here representing the owner, Joe Lopez. I'm with Peter Alfonso Jr. Architects, and I'm presenting 1002 East 19th Avenue. I pulled out the site plan. I'm gonna go over the site plan real quick with you guys. As Ron Villa stated, to the west, we have North 9th Street. To the south, we got East 19th Avenue. And to the west, we have North 10th Street. It's a corner lot, so we took that into account. We have 2 trees that are hindering us placing the house in the center of the lot. So we pushed the house up 5 feet from the corner lot. We also positioned the house 10 feet from the front property line to the face of the porch, the front porch. Our front porch is 8 foot deep. It kind of has like a little wraparound porch on this one to a certain extent to face that corner. So to the north of the property, we located the driveway, since we can't put it on the south side or on the west side of the property like we were intended previously because of the trees. There is a pecan tree to the north that we're planning to remove. The driveway's in the back. We have access to the house from driveway to the sidewalk, and then another porch in the rear of the house, so it's kind of like lanai. And then coming into the house. There is an existing sidewalk all the way around the property on the south side and on the east side. So we're gonna keep that. The finished floor will be 24 inches, similar to the house next door. We only have one adjacent house. So we located the front of the house at the same line of the existing house to the west. We'll keep going here. So front elevations, this is a house that we already built already at 1304 Columbus a couple of years ago, got approved by you guys. So we took the similar house and placed it into this lot with some adjustments that we made. Since it's in a corner lot, we added some additional windows to face the corner. We're gonna have a smooth hardboard siding. We're gonna have asphalt shingles. As you see, we have the trim around the windows. Our fascias will be 1x8. We're gonna have exposed rafters, and we're also gonna have some trimming. I'm gonna show you what the existing house looked like. This is the existing house, the elevations. So the piers are gonna be brick. We have a tapered column. We have the similar door, front door. The windows will be recessed to create that relief. I'm gonna go back to the side here so you guys can look at it. Well, I guess it's not working. Anyway, that's the wraparound porch that I was discussing earlier. So the smooth hearted board, we have the louvers, the exposed soffits and rafters. And that is it for the elevation. This is our typical section. First floor will be constructed out of CMU. Second floor out of wood. This is our typical trimming for the windows with the hardy board siding, and this is our typical detail for the hardy board with the actual edges, you know, the little corner trims. Windows will be vinyl window, wood cladded. The doors will be one over the bottom of the door, so you're gonna have a little bit of glass on the top, and then the bottom will be solid, similar to the picture that I was showing you before from the existing house. And that concludes my presentation.
You might use it again.
Good morning, Commissioner Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding on page 3 of your staff report is that this application is consistent with Ybor City Design Guidelines. When we met and we assisted him with his drawings to come forward, there were some conditions associated with page 3, and he addressed some of them this morning. I'd like to go through the staff report with you. So he had stated that the elevation from grade is 24 inches and the setback is 10. In YC8, the setback off the front elevation or front property line is 10. So he's meeting the zoning code attached to this parcel. He has showed some concrete that's coming into the property for his vehicular access. It should be scored properly. Usually they're 5x5 modules. The sidewalks are 3x3 modules. The driveway is 5x5 modules. It was not indicated on the drawings. The drawings that were submitted to us, that we generated our staff report on, was lacking some windows because it was on a corner elevation. He's incorporated windows that I believe is consistent with our criteria. He had mentioned that the construction technique coming forward is CMU on the bottom and frame up top. What we're looking for is the consistency of the inset of the windows with the two different materials. Sometimes the upper windows are flush and the CMUs are recessed. So we're looking for the first floor to be recessed and the second floor to be recessed as well, to be consistent. I believe he showed a sister house that is already built that this board reviewed and approved. It's not uncommon to have a sister house in the neighborhood to draw inspiration. He showed that through the presentation this morning to provide you some reference as well. I'll be here to answer any questions.
Anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this case? Seeing none, we can start asking some questions of the applicant. Mr. Nguyen.
Is there a site plan you can pull up that we can take a look at? And
We're just seeing a green screen on ours right now.
Oh, you seeing the green screen?
Right, just a green screen.
Hmm.
Certain input.
Got some technical difficulties, but I do have there it is. Is it showing up now?
no.
No?
You want to go to the Elmo?
Yeah, system, it says the system is down.
It looks like we're down all over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, give it a couple minutes.
All right. If anyone else has some questions, most of mine is concerns with the site plan, so. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all visual
Visual
here.
people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so the AV guys know, the monitors up here are kind of flickering. They weren't flickering at the other monitors, but ours were kind of,
Mine always kind of flickers, especially when when I try to look at details, like,
They're-
prepare your
they're-
eyes a little bit.
They're really bad this
Yeah.
morning. They're making me
That's true,
upset.
they're a little worse.
Still starting up. I mean, I do have this one. It's not working.
It
It's all
won't
tied to
feed
the same
through.
system, right? Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
bingo. All right.
Oh, and it's not flickering. Or maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit. Much better. It needed a reboot.
Okay, so we have a sidewalk entrance off of 19th, your driveway cut off of 10th Street,
Right.
the east side. And then you score everything, as Ron kind of mentioned, you know, your
Yes.
3-foot modules for the sidewalk, 5-foot for the concrete. Looks like you have a sidewalk entrance to the rear of the house as well on the site plan. And then the condensing unit off to the west side is a little hidden. Is there gonna be fencing or anything on the
Yes,
property?
there will be fencing.
Okay, what type of fence will it be?
It's gonna be a wood fence,
Wood fence? All right.
but the wood fence will only be around this area, just to cover up the porch, and then around, and then up to this point.
Okay, I got you. All right.
And of course, we gotta be aware of the 2 trees that we have to go around with the fence.
You get the wraparound porch there.
Yeah.
Can we go to the front elevation? This one now? And then, so, what type of lighting, will be around on like the porch area?
So
that-
in the porch, we'll have some recessed lighting.
So recess in the,
Yeah.
in the ceiling?
In the
And then
ceiling.
and what about the back of the house? Along
The
before
back out the
driveway?
same.
Same,
So we'll have recessed lighting.
okay. And then for the foundation, what type of foundation are you using?
Stem wall
Stem wall?
construction, so.
And how's it finished? Mm-hmm. How is it finished? How's it
Oh,
going to be finished?
so we'll have the stem wall construction, and then the outside will be stucco at the bottom pan.
Okay.
So if you see it here, that'll be stucco.
Oh, I see your notes there.
And then you have, you have a relieve with a trim,
Okay.
board trim, and then hardy board, another trim, and then hardy board again. So you have that relief on the elevation.
Those are my questions.
So I'm gonna follow up with that line of questioning. What type of finish is the stucco?
It's gonna be smooth.
Smooth. And the brick wrap on the columns, is that true brick or a face
True
brick?
brick.
True brick. And then, the column wraps themselves, is that a hardy board as well? I don't think you had mentioned
Yes.
how that would be wrapped. Okay, when looking at, can you pull this out a little bit so I can see the front elevation and the return elevation for that porch? Zoom out. So I can see the front and that one side. And then pull that up and then, perfect.
Yep.
What is that space? Can you show the ground floor plan, the first floor plan? I just want to see really quickly to understand. Oh, so it's a bathroom, okay. Okay, you put the elevations back up, please.
Okay.
So front, rear. Are the gable end louvers, are those actual true louvers or are those false?
They're decorative.
I'm sorry.
They're false.
Okay, so they'll be back painted in some way to
Yes.
emulate, okay. If we talk about lighting, what about hardware? Do you have that available today? What your thoughts are on the hardware?
Hardware, no, but I don't have the hardware information.
Okay, we'll coordinate that with staff. The stairs themselves, are they also concrete or are they
They are.
wood? They're
Yeah, they will be
concrete,
concrete.
and they'll be finished,
Just concrete finish.
okay. For the floor and the ceiling of the two porches, how will those be finished?
Floor will be concrete, the ceilings will be tongue and groove.
Tongue and groove, okay. And then for the wood fence, will there be, on the site plan, will there be pedestrian and or vehicular gates? And where will those be located?
Okay, so there will be, go back to the site plan.
Yes, please. And we can zoom in a little bit. Excuse me.
Okay. All right, so, of course, we'll have a gate
Okay,
for the vehicle and entryway, and then we'll have a main gate on this side.
and that will be a pedestrian scale?
That'll be a bit, yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
all right. And then landscape plan, you still have to develop
We
that?
don't have a landscape plan.
Okay, thank you, that's it for me.
Yeah, on the site plan, I see a note on there that says, gutters and downspouts, and you have a
Yes.
detail in there that you're capturing. When you go to the elevations, you have exposed rafter tails.
Yes.
Which is it?
We're gonna be using the round gutters and downspouts. We did it at the previous house as well.
Okay, so no rafter tail, no exposed rafter tails?
They will be exposed, but of course, you're gonna have the gutter on it. but we're still gonna have the rafter tails. I can show you a picture. I don't have a picture of it, of what it looks like now. But, we're still gonna have the rafter tails exposed.
So they'll be a little bit deeper than the gutters, and then you'll
Yes.
chase down. So
So-
you're not showing gutters and downspouts on your elevations? though?
No, we're
And
not
they're gonna be at the ends of the,
It'll be at the end of the rafters, yes.
okay. And it might create a little issue for you with that porch under there too, so probably have to work around that.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, I do like, the improved window placement and the number. I think that's a nice improvement from last iteration that we saw. Go ahead and bring up your elevations.
Sure.
Zoom out a little bit. There you go. So on the rear elevation, you're gonna put a double door on the back? Is
Yes.
that the plan? You have enough room there to do that?
Yes, we do. That back area, it's open. I can show you a plan.
Yeah, it just looks a little tight there. I mean, the columns are in the way with the windows. You could be able to properly trim.
There it is. So, this is the area where we have the set of double doors facing the rear. That's the back porch. And that's the front porch.
Yeah, my concern there is that the door is pretty close to the side windows. It's gonna be difficult to get all your hardy board trim around the
Sure.
windows and doors.
We can push them out a little bit.
Might need to, yeah, okay. Okay, let's go back to the elevations, okay. So that hole on your left and right elevation, your side elevations, that's a continuous stucco band there?
Yes.
What's your plan for, that seems like a long expanse. Is
This
there a
one?
plan to break that up?
We can put some score joints in it. you
Scoring?
know, Like, yeah, stucco joints.
Okay, yeah, the one on the left elevations
This one.
seems even longer, so.
Absolutely.
Your intent isn't to put brick out there, though,
Yes, so we'll have break at the column bases.
but not under the house.
But not under the house, and then basically we'll just we'll provide some score joints on the stucco.
Okay. Okay, and you mentioned your windows. I heard vinyl in there, and I also heard clad, so what's our?
Yeah,
what's
so
our-
it's wood cladded.
It's wood clad vinyl?
Vinyl.
Okay. Okay, and do you have a wall section that shows, the staff's concern with the window depth between the CMU and the wood framing?
I don't have a printout of it, but we are planning to align the two windows, recess them, and
Okay.
align them both on the CMU and the wood frame on the second floor,
Okay,
similar to what we did on the previous home.
okay. And, I think that's all I have at this point in time. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, you have a few minutes if you want to summarize your presentation or anything after following our comments.
I think I'll conclude my presentation.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We can have a discussion on the case in front of us. Susan?
I really don't have any, I mean, I think we have a couple of things we do absolutely need to note in our motion, but it's clean. I think it'll, work well into the fabric of the neighborhood, so.
Like previously mentioned, I think some of the window improvements to take advantage of the corner lot have been a nice improvement in the house, and other than that, they built their sister house before, so some comments with, that staff can address, that they work with staff to, coordinate out how the deal should be a successful project.
Yeah, I think it's a nice project. It's got good bones, and I think it addresses the site well. It's a tough site with those oak trees remaining there, so you're pushing that out, but I think it's a better use to recess in that front porch on this lot than the previous project. But I think there's good bones here, just a couple of conditions that to work with staff on this to get kind of straightened out, and we're on our way.
All right, so we can do a final approval with conditions, so move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented as this public hearing in BLC 24-00000155 for the property located at 1002 East 19th Ave, with the following conditions: that the applicant look at pushing out the first floor rear elevation, the windows in the first floor rear elevation, out from the doors, just to give some more space for the hardy trim. That the applicant look at scoring the left and right elevations, the cementous coating on the foundation, just for control joints and just for a little bit more relief. And then that the applicant look at, and that the applicant work with staff for the concrete scoring for both the main driveway, both the pedestrian access and the vehicular access, and coordinate all final colors, hardware, and lighting on the exterior of the home. Anything I might have missed? Add.
Wood fence.
Oh, and then that the applicant work with staff to finalize the wood fence on the project as well.
Okay, and window alignment between the two materials.
Oh, and then the applicant ensure with staff that the window alignment in the section of the house between the CMU first floor and in the wood second floor are both inset at the same distance for the exterior elevations. Because based on the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that the that the project meets the design criteria for new construction based on the height and width, facade width, setback, spacing, alignment, similar details of forms and building materials. In the Ybor City design guidelines.
I second the motion.
Okay, there's been a number of conditions placed on this application for your approval. Can the applicant concur that they are in agreement with these conditions?
We agree.
Okay. All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, congratulations.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Our last agenda item is BLC 24-00000170 for the address of 1820 East 7th Avenue. Currently, it's a vacant lot. It has some parking on it as well. The zoning associated with this parcel is YC1. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction. There's a modular building being requested with some site improvements. The total square footage of the building is 209 square feet. Starting with the 1929 Sanborn map, property in question is here. It's got the green highlight behind it. It is on our main commercial corridor, 7th Avenue. The Sanborn map tells us a lot of information. Tells you the setback of the structures. It tells you some of the architectural elements that it had, awnings and balconies that encroach over the property line as you kind of narrow down. The red indicates brick construction. The yellow is frame construction, and the blue is concrete block. So there's a consistency of historic fabric within the district, and this was in 1929. This is, once again, our vicinity map. You can see the concentration along 7th Avenue. You don't even have to look at the names of the streets. You know that the density of the commercial buildings are along our Spusher Street, 7th Avenue within Ybor City. This is looking at the subject site. Currently, there's a perimeter wall with some ironwork above it. There is a little curbing on the bottom of this, and then you see the hex pavers, which is the pedestrian right-of-way. Just to the left, which is to the west, you have a contributing structure, Dummies Market. That is a one-story structure. Continuing to the west is an open courtyard that has an accessory building to the uses associated with that site. And one of the uses is a restaurant, is Carmine's, that flanks the corner of 18th, which is Angel Oliva and 7th Avenue. Once again, you see the pedestrian corridor along 7th Avenue, and then obviously the streets on parallel parking as you get into it. Going back to the property in question, This is the wall along 7th Avenue. Property that's going to be built out is almost adjacent to the wall that's over here. Looking in the other direction, to the east, that wall continues and terminates into what used to be La Tropicana, which is this building here. I wanted to give you a flavor of the immediate vicinity as you go forward. This is looking from within the parcel, from the alley, looking to the south. You see some of the vernacular across the street, the scale and the massing of the single-story structures that are there, which is just a close-up of this. Once again, you have the street, the parallel parking, the hex pavers for the pedestrian flow, and then the commercial buildings. Some more of the architecture along, and that's concentrated within the 1800 block of 7th Avenue. This is looking down the street. This is 7th Avenue looking to the west, and 7th Avenue looking towards the east. At this time, I'm going to conclude the photo presentation. I'm going to have the agent come forward and address the board, and then I'll have my staff report after. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is David Bailey. I'm the agent for this application, also a resident and developer in the district. Is that blurry for you guys? That's not good.
It wasn't when it first started.
We'll go with that, I guess. Okay. So let's get to it. All right. So again, David Bailey, my wife Stephanie and I are developers and residents of Ybor City, and I just wanted to kind of review our track record in Ybor City in converting sad lots and turning them to something special. So this is a lot on the corner of 4th Avenue and 15th Street that we took from being this and turned it into this. And so also a project that was accused of being too small when we proposed it to the Barrio Latino Commission back in 2015. Subsequently, we won an award of excellence for redevelopment and housing for this project. More recently, December 2023, we took this sad little lot on the corner of 4th Avenue and 18th Street, Angel Oliva, and within a number of days, we turned that into this. Sorry about that. And what was really exciting is that not only did it kick up like a lot of interest within the neighborhood, it played off really well with Pete's Bagels across the street, got a lot of energy into the residential neighborhood, and it also introduced Ybor to what we call micro retail and the importance of micro retail in our district. So I wanted to talk with you today about what's going on 7th Avenue. So I would say Ybor City is missing some teeth in its smile. And we weren't here, we didn't cause this, none of us here, but when these historic buildings were demolished and we put surface parking lots on 7th Avenue, and then we do nothing for decades, we disrupt the connectivity of Ybor, we short circuit the natural pedestrian flow of the village, and we create dead zones. And some of these dead zones are more than half of a city block in scale. So if we wait for big development to come to heal these wounds, we're just waiting for decades. And today we have hundreds and hundreds of linear feet of buildings, 2-story buildings, 3-story buildings on 7th Avenue that are boarded up and vacant. So we know that big buildings aren't our only option. So what are we to do? So if we take a wider look at the site context, and Ron walked you through this, you see 7th Avenue, and then we're placed in between 18th, Angel Oliva, and 19th Street. You probably recognize these businesses along this context. And what's really interesting about this block is that on the 1800 block of 7th Avenue, we have 3 zones where there are small buildings that are set back from other larger buildings. So you can see the 3 zones there highlighted in blue. The first zone is sandbar, which is part of gas bars. You can clearly see a small structure that's set back behind a low wall, set back from other larger structures, set back from the property line, and I've included a diagram that shows the setback to the west is about 10 feet, and to 7th Avenue is about 14 feet. So the second zone is actually the grotto of gas bars, so just on the east side of where we just were. And you can clearly see smaller structures that are set back from the larger structures and that are set back from the property line. You see a shed roof towards 7th Avenue, which was recently turned into a bar. And the third zone is Carmine's Courtyard. And you can see a variety of small structures that have occupied this space. And they are set back from the property line. One of the main structures you see there in the center is set back 18 feet. And it has a variety of different materials. There's metal, there's wood, there's all kinds of materials there. And I want to note that in all three of these cases, the sandboard maps show us that there used to be a historic structure there. These were not courtyard spaces 100 years ago. These had structures on them. So if we look at the pattern on the block, just to reiterate, small structures are set back and away from larger buildings and sidewalks, and they're set behind low walls. So let's take a little closer look at our site. So beating a dead horse here, we've got 105 linear feet of asphalt facing historic 7th Avenue. Our site is just a little golden rectangle there next to Demi's, 20 feet wide by 35 feet long. You'll also note that the Tropicana building is also set back from the sidewalk, and it was built in the 70s, and I'm not saying it's the picture of beauty and what we should emulate in architecture, but it is a pattern on the block. So when Stephanie and I looked at this site, we walked around like we all do as architects, and we kind of pondered this relic. We saw this wall there that I've seen since I was a kid. This parking lot is as old as I am. And we thought, like, what can we do with this? How can we engage with this found object? So our scheme was to puncture the wall to make this wall more porous, to allow pedestrians to flow into this space and create some activity on the site. And we proposed this site plan that you see on the right. And I included a timeline because it kind of informs how we got to where we are today. So on the 21st, we had our DRC meeting with all city departments, and we responded to all comments within days. On the 29th, we had a call from Mr. Vila mentioning that what the challenges might be, but no fatal flaws were mentioned. So we presented our exhibits on September 4th, and then the staff report came out on the 13th that we really wish we would have heard that prior to drawings being submitted. But the good news is that that report forced us to look at the site again, and it made us reflect on what the site conditions are and to see if there's something else we could do. So I included a quote from Claude Debussy that says, "Music is the space between the notes." And all that means is that it's not all about the buildings, it's about the space around the buildings as well. So because of staff report, we took a second look at this. And so what we've done here is a simple move. We simply moved the small structure further away from the Demi's Market structure. We only moved it 10 feet. There's only so far we can go because our area is only 20 feet wide. So we moved it 10 feet, so an additional 10 feet. So we're 12 feet away from the Demi's Market structure, and then we moved back an additional foot because we have some ADA circulation that popped up as a result of that maneuver. And what that's done is created this really interesting outdoor space in between our structure and the Demi's Market structure. We think it's a better scheme, we think it's a better site plan, so in that regard, we're happy that the staff report kind of pushed us in that direction. The other thing that we've done here is that we've created this secondary pedestrian opportunity, because if you think about when you walk down the sidewalk on 7th Avenue, a lot of times it's busy, sometimes it's not, but it's great to kind of pull off to the sidewalk and have like a little moment where you're just looking at something in a window, having a seat. I love watching people go by because there's great people watching in Ybor City. And this is the type of pedestrian environment you would see in St. Augustine, Key West, other urban environments. So again, we feel like what we did was a proper response to the staff report and the conditions. And so we went ahead and updated the elevations for this scheme. And so if you have any questions regarding that update, I'm happy to go through that. And I'm kind of wary of going too quickly in this presentation because you're seeing some updates to elevations that you haven't seen yet. I'm an architect and I know that I like to see the details, but we can go back if you'd like. So I want to go through, I know the design guidelines very well. So we were surprised by some of the things that were mentioned in the staff report, but we'd like to assume it's because staff wants to set a very high bar for buildings like this that can come into Ybor City. This is not a food truck. This is not a trailer. This is a beautifully constructed building. And the good news is that our design is based upon Ybor City. Like I said, we live in Ybor City. We work in Ybor City. We are basically influenced by Ybor City. So it is not a coincidence that the top of our knee wall is 2 foot. The top of the knee wall to Demi's Market right next to us is 2 feet. The top of glass of Demi's Market is 9'6". Our top of glass is 9'2". And clearly we are a smaller building than the Demi's Market building. What's interesting is we're only about 2 feet shorter than the Tropicana building. So if you imagine kind of a step down from the taller historic Demi's Market building to us, to Tropicana, it's not beyond the pale. In terms of building materials, most of the facade is covered with MirTech, composite wood panel, and that's accepted throughout the historic district. We've done, I think every project that I've done has MirTech on it. I should be a salesperson for it. We have well-detailed metal on the sides and rear, and I would argue that metal is not the 4-letter word that it used to be. Off to the side there, I included 2 photos of metal panel that was included in Barrio approved projects recently. I can see these projects from the window of my house. Again, building materials, we chose a color palette that was, I would say, elegant and kind of refined. We used high quality materials. We used accessories that were appropriate for the scale of the building. And we're very proud of this construction. We're very proud of what we've put together. So continue with the design guidelines regarding facade width and setbacks and spacing and alignment. We've covered this already, but the pattern on this block is clear. Small structures are set back and away from larger buildings. They are behind set back from sidewalks and behind low walls. And I just wanted to say that tiny retail is done adorably well around the world, and it is appropriate for Ybor City. We are inspired by a lot of these images, but it just kind of shows you the excitement and the flavor that micro retail can bring to a community, and small is not bad. So Ybor is always waiting for the highest and best use of a site. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, how long are we going to wait? 10 years, 20 years? Like I said, this parking lot is as old as I am. So if we wait for big development, we're probably going to be waiting a long time. Said this before, but if bigger buildings were the answer, we wouldn't have all these perpetually boarded up buildings on our historic showcase 7th Avenue. You know, this building and the Larman Furniture building are rotting in front of our faces. And that's not, it's a shame in a different sense, but I'm telling you that bigger buildings are not the answer to all of our problems. Our nimble shops bring a higher and better use, so not the highest and best use, but a higher and better use to 7th Avenue. We have the potential of future phasing on this site, and if we can do it, we will definitely come back to you with future structures. And our primary goal is to bring daytime retail to 7th Avenue. Too many times people show up to 7th Avenue getting off a cruise ship and they'll ask Stephanie or I, like, where's Ybor City? It's because during the daytime it's mostly closed. So in conclusion, I would argue we've demonstrated that we have a track record in Ybor City to turn said lots around. I'm an architect. I live in Ybor City. I can assure you that I would not bring something to this commission that I'm not proud of. And the question that I've said many times before is, do we want to continue with asphalt parking lots, or do we want to take a small bit of progress? So I'm asking you to let us plant this small seed on 7th Avenue, and hopefully as soon as possible, we will bring you more. And we are asking for your final approval for the certificate of appropriateness on the condition that we use the alternate site plan discussed today. Hopefully you've seen the neighborhood letters of support that have come in regarding this project, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Moving forward with the staff report, I want to put into the record, you can receive and file these at the end of the meeting, that you have the 2 letters of support in your packets. On page 3, the application of standards, the design criteria for new construction is as follows. There's bullet items that address all new construction as it's introduced to the Barrio Latino Commission. The height and width, the facade width, the setbacks, the spacing, the alignment, the similarities of details and forms, and building materials. I'm going to address each of these individually. Then I'm going to walk you down 7th Avenue with a photo presentation to show you infill property that has been approved by this board. So staff's findings, for the reasons below, this modular commercial building request is inconsistent with the Ybor City design guidelines. Concentrated within the 1800 block of 7th Avenue, there's a series of 1- and 2-story contributing structures on the corridor that should be the primary point of reference. Once again, 7th Avenue is our commercial corridor there. Moving forward with the first bullet item with the applications of standards for new constructions is the height and the width. It talks about the height of the new building, not a storefront, not a portion of what is being presented. The new building should be consistent with those of other structures within the same block. This building measures 12 foot, 6 inches to the top of the parapet, as indicated on the plans, which falls very short of the traditional brick and mortar structures within that block and within the concentration on 7th Avenue. The facade widths. The front width of the new building, not a component, the total new building within the same block should be consistent. The total width of the proposed building is 8 foot 6 inches, which is far less than any building within 7th Avenue. Setbacks. Maintain uniform setbacks of the buildings. New infills should be consistent with the established setback pattern to establish compatibility along 7th Avenue with the old and the new. The ADA accessibility should be, and the buildings along 7th Avenue, and I'm going to show you, should come in from 7th Avenue, from the sidewalk that I showed, the hexagon pavers, into the establishment, not internally into the site. So somebody that needs assistance should be able to come up to the front of this establishment. The spacing between the buildings should be kept consistent along the block. As shown on the site plan, there was a 2-foot separation on the initial plan. On this plan, he's pulled it back a little bit. Historically, when you look on the Sanborn map, you see that there's 0 lot lines or party walls. Alignment. Align facade elements, porches, building heights, and widths of new construction with that of existing buildings to continue the sense of rhythm, alignment along the block. Because of the scale of this request, the rhythm is not carried along the block of 1800 block of 7th Avenue. Similarities in details and forms. Architecture details and forms in new construction should echo those in the neighboring historic structures. He pointed out some non-contributing structures, but the historic structures, to provide a visual link between the old and the new. Because the proposed scale and form of the submission is not consistent with the historic fabric, particularly along 7th Avenue, the connection between the old and new is not met, rather it is disrupted and is diminished but the size of the diminished structure proposed to this building is not consistent with that block face. Building materials, traditional building materials in new construction should echo those of the past. And you look in the Sanborn map, as I illustrated when I initially brought the photo presentation forward, you have the brick, you have the stucco, and you have the wood that's indicated. For these reasons, the reference above, the proposed modular unit is not consistent with the 7th Avenue status as the historic district's premier commercial corridor, and it does not maintain the historic development pattern within Ybor City. The proposal is therefore inconsistent with the Ybor City design standards. It should be noted that this container development and prefab building have not been supported by staff as an appropriate building solution within the historic district. I want to walk you through 7th Avenue now. I started at Nucio. And the agent stated that, we're waiting for traditional new construction to come, and it's not coming. Well, this is on the corner of Nucio and 7th, and we're going to continue down to the east. So you have new construction, and new construction here. As you continue down the block, you have a period building and then new construction. So that void has been filled in. Across the street, on the corner of 13th and 7th, you have a new hotel that was there. You see how it anchors the corner. It meets up with the sidewalk. There is an entrance here, and the scale and the massing is compatible with the district. Continuing down 7th Avenue, this is the Hyatt Hotel. You see the articulation on the building. You see the support columns. You see the display windows. You see the balconies here as it continues up. Those architectural elements frame 7th Avenue as you continue down our important corridor. This is the corner of 15th and 7th, going down the block. Couple of infill. This is new construction, historic building, 1 story here, historic building, and then new construction as you continue down. Once again, you see the articulation of the new construction, how it complements the fabric of the historic structures. This is just looking back down that corridor, down 7th Avenue, the introduction of the brick streets that we just did a ribbon cutting out there along a couple blocks on 7th Avenue, but how infill fits in with the historic structure, and you have infill here. Continuing down 7th Avenue, you have a series of contributing structures, and then at the end, you have a 1-story building. So we're not saying that a smaller building is inconsistent with our criteria, but you see how it carries along some of the datum lines that are here in place and how it fits in to that corner element again. And here's that canopy, tie backs, some more architectural elements that are consistent with the fabric along 7th Avenue and within Ybor City. This is the block in question that we spoke about. I think we looked at this. And continuing down the block, we have some infill. This is, when the barrio had just started, it was referred to as Frankie's Patio. But once again, you see the scale and the mass in here, some of the architectural elements, and the continuation of that datum line. New construction here, contributing structure here. You see the rhythm of the consistency with the fabric that is there. Just to conclude, I think David showed you, but when the building that he's wanting to put onto the 7th Avenue corridor, this is where it sat, where he showed the engagement with the community. That's the front elevation facing 4th Avenue. This is the front elevation. This is a side. As you wrap around the side to the rear. And the other side. That concludes my portion of the staff report, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anyone here from the public wishing to comment? I don't see any. We'll start with some questions of the applicant, starting with Mr. Nguyen.
So could you give us a little background on, because you're not building on the entire parking lot, so is this like a sublease for the larger like lot? Like how's the agreement end this and how?
Yes,
Yeah, can you give us a little background?
This is a ground lease of the property.
Ground lease, okay. And then this idea, and then does this lease, does it have an expiration date of any sort? Is the idea for this modular building to be temporary, like permanent, you know, what's sort of the scope of it?
It's a 5-year ground lease currently.
5-year ground lease. Let's see. And so the adjustments, when you said you had received the previous staff report and made the adjustments to it, and I know you had shifted the building, you know, east 10 feet to take up the east side. What were could you give us an overview of like the comments you had initially addressed it to kind of, and made the changes for
Sure.
what we kind of see now?
Absolutely. And just to clarify, the initial comments were from the DRC meeting. They were not from the staff report because there was not an initial staff report. So most of the comments that we got from other departments of staff had to do with parking requirements. This is YC1, so we do not have a parking requirement. There were questions about plumbing because of the site. What are the requirements for plumbing? There was a discussion about ADA, which, as we've shown in the drawings, and I could clarify something that Mr. Vila mentioned during his remarks, is that there is ADA access from 7th Avenue. It's just as coming through the La Tropicana gate and turning left, and we could do a better job of depicting that. But there is ADA access from the sidewalk as well as from the parking lot. There was a question about the address. This historically is, it's platted, and it's on the Sanborn maps as 1820, but if you Google 1820 7th Avenue, you're gonna get Demi's Market instead of this. So we responded to all of those comments, and we didn't have any other comments from Historic Preservation on that meeting. We had a subsequent phone call with Mr. Vila where he said, you know, you're gonna have some challenges regarding everything that he's discussed with you today, but nothing was just kind of like, you're in a bad spot, man. You know, this is a fatal flaw. So that's kind of how we got out of sync in terms of the drawings that we submitted to you by the exhibit deadline versus what we've presented to you today.
And then, so the way the structure is constructed, I'm assuming you still have to pour a foundation and all that kind of stuff, right, to kind of anchor everything in and.
It's a great question, and I do want to clarify something. This is not a shipping container.
Right.
This is new construction. This is all permitted, all certified. In terms of the foundation, we take what's called a ground screw, and there's different types of ground screws that you can use. There's a helical screw, and then there's another type of screw, and it's basically just literally is a giant screw that goes into the ground, and it goes into the point that it reaches its proper resistance, and then you're connecting directly to that. The beauty of that is that in the event that things change in the future, obviously, like we said, we're not the highest and best use, we're just a higher and better use. So in 20 years, when a big development comes along, all we have to do is remove our structure, take those ground screws out, you're off to the races. We're not in anybody's way, we're not holding up big development down the road.
All right, thank you. Those are my questions.
Hi, I just had a quick question just about the La Tropicana exterior wall. Do you know how old that metal is?
It's a good question. I have to assume, and Ron, Mr. Vila can back me up on this, that building and parking lot was built around the same time as I was born, so it's got to be 50 years old, and some of it's in pretty bad shape. It's starting to degrade and rust, and you know, when it rusts, it kind of just spalls out. So there's some of it that's not in the best shape where we're talking about disrupting it. It looks okay, so we're just going to have to kind of case by case on that.
Okay, and then I guess this is just for my future knowledge, but if for the potential future phasing part, if you were going to cut out some of the metal and the wall, would that need to be preserved at all? The actual, if it was like iron?
That's a question for staff.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Ron Vila. We did some research, and Tropicana dates back to 1974, so at that same time, the wall was probably erected as well.
Do you have an actual comparison elevation drawing? You mentioned it verbally, but most of us are visual. And a lot of people who are gonna watch this, if they're not watching already, they appreciate the visual connectivity. I'm just trying to understand, you had the side-by-side comparison of some of the elements on the facade, but I really want to understand that street elevation. We're honing in a lot on that particular part of the code, the guidelines. Just really want to understand it if you have it.
I can tell you I do not have the full elevation showing Demi's Market, the building, and
The full block
La
elevation.
Tropicana. No, I don't. And actually, my wife is gonna kill me because she did prepare that drawing and I do not have it with me today. So the drawing does exist.
And obviously, you wouldn't have it in relationship to the full street persona of that particular part of Seventh. With the street neighbors across, the facade neighbors across the street.
I'm sorry, from Carmine's.
The south side of Seventh in your block relationship. No,
We do not have a drawing of the full elevation of the
Okay.
south side of the site.
Okay.
What I did present to you was the overview, the aerial overview, which clearly shows these zones that have small structures in them that are set back from the property line and set back from the larger building, which I think is the appropriate way of doing it. It's just a smaller building, and that's also happening in 3 different places on the same 1,800 block, so.
I do have a question, and you may not be able to answer it, and that's okay. Why here? Why not other places that have infill that seems more appropriately scaled for what you want to do?
Great question, and that's because we feel like Ybor City needs more micro retail.
No, I understand the Ybor site. I mean, why this particular site? There are a lot of teeth missing, as you noted, and you had that diagram. Why this one? This is one of the larger pieces that you noted, and with the scale of what you're proposing, it seems to be more appropriate that it would be as a professional, as a person who has done some planning in city fabrics before. It would seem, and I know there's a lot of things that go into it, market studies and all of that, but, looking at it from a scalar perspective, right?
That's a great question. The first answer to that is economics. We have one of these built today. If we had 10, if we had 6, we would be talking to you about many more sites. I can tell you that we have talked to other property owners who own the small teeth that are missing, and they are interested. This is the first property owner that said, I'm willing to do a pilot project with you. So the answer is this is the first one, and we have an owner that's willing and ready to lease us this land to do this. And so that's kind of the answer to the question. If we're gonna be on 7th Avenue, I think there's very few people who own property facing 7th Avenue. This is the first person who said yes.
So I have a few more questions.
Sure.
If this was to move forward, this does not affect anyone's parking requirements that might be using this particular lot?
Technically speaking, this lot would be losing 2 parking spaces.
And that doesn't impact anybody's parking requirements that are currently using this lot for parking needs?
Not to my knowledge. It's a paid lot that kind of ebbs and flows on its use. I think Saturday morning market, there's some cars there. Other times there's no cars there because of like the parking regulations that were discussed, a lot of things in flux. I know Saturday night it's very busy, so it could be some bar.
So you professionally do not know if there's a parking agreement that exists with any surrounding businesses that lean on this parking lot to fulfill any parking requirements?
There are no parking agreements that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We've had that discussion in terms of the impact of, and just to be clear, we're paying market value for the 2 parking spaces we're taking. Nothing's been given to us. So we're basically renting those 2 parking spaces out for the next 5 years.
Okay. I did have another question, now it's left my mind. If anybody else has a question right now, please go ahead.
Yeah, so your ground lease is for 2 spaces, right? You don't extend beyond, further into that lot?
Correct.
And
We've had some discussions regarding access and circulation, like I said, like ADA access, but our technical footprint of what we're our building footprint, so to speak, is 20 by 35.
Would it be possible to get a third space and set this back? What, your front setback right now is set at what?
We're 7 feet back from the property line.
Okay, and it's 12.2 to the adjacent building, the exterior wall of Demi's?
It's about 12 feet. And when I say that, the Demi's wall is very interesting because it actually is over the property line, and there's pilasters as well. So in some places it's a foot over the property line, and in some places it's a 1.8 feet over the property line.
Okay. So your front setback 7, 12. Yeah, I'm just kind of wrestling with, is this something that's more acceptable? If you're not going to have it right up on the street, and 0 setback, which we normally see on 7th Avenue and YC1. If I think the examples that you presented of adjacent properties were Carmine's, across the street, gas bars, and even Dirty Shame, all have those accessory structures that are more set back, 20 feet. I think gas bars is a little different, that they've got one building, but their main structures are set back and they're more secondary, not primary structures. And I think really that's where staff's concern is, that you're on the main commercial stretch of 7th Avenue with a nearly 0 setback, and it'd probably be a little bit more palatable if it was set back. So to follow up with that, I guess, would it be possible to get a third parking space and set that back a little further? I'm not sure if you've looked at that. And have you done like a master plan of what this would be if you had the whole entire parking lot, and what would that look like? I think that would be a good visualization for what your vision is.
Sure. I would say if that was a condition of moving forward to set back further, that is something that we would pursue. As I mentioned, this is every little step that we take is an economic decision. So taking an additional parking space more likely would be changing our lease agreement and more money. In terms of the master plan, I can basically tell you that our general intent is to take the first 30 feet of this site, so the southernmost 30 feet that faces 7th Avenue, and continue to do more along that stretch. I can't tell you what that site plan looks like because we don't know what the array of those structures are going to be. And as much as I'm not a fan of surface parking lots, it's an economic reality that is our site that we're on, and we have to understand that if we do this, all of a sudden we just knocked out 10 parking spaces or a circulation of the parking lot. So we're trying to get a foothold, but tread lightly on the parking lot, so to speak.
Okay. And would you consider this, with a 5-year ground lease, would you consider this a permanent installation or a temporary installation? Are you looking for a permanent approval or a 5-year approval for this?
That's a great question, and we don't know what the future holds. These structures could be in place for 50 years if the market wanted them to be there. I don't think they're going to be there for 50 years. I think it's going to be there from 5 to 10. But if I looked at the Blue Ribbon parking lot, and if you told me, is that going to be there for 10 years, 5 years, who knows? So we're kind of taking the future in five-year increments, and that's how we're basing our plans. That's how we can afford to invest in something like this, is in a 5-year increment. Anything more than that, I just don't know. I think I already said this before, but the most important thing is that we are not in the way of bigger development coming to this site. We're basically like the first act, and then the headliner is going to come on in, I don't know, 10 years or 5 years. And something that I want to point out, of all of the infill development that you saw in Mr. Vila's presentation, I think one of those was a parking lot. And that says something. Parking lots are incredibly profitable businesses. They are not going to go away on their own. They make a ton of money. So this is our opportunity to, like I said, plant a little seed, have a little bit of progress, and see what we can do.
And I think from your previous drawings, you're going to countersink this unit, is the modular unit. Is this still the plan, or the helical screws kind of take the place and you're just going to go right in and not disturb the soil? And or
Yes.
parking lot asphalt and ADA issues and?
Sure. So to clarify that, or to explain it, I guess I should say, the structure, because we're moving this structure in, it's about 6 inches deep. And so in order for us to go to a site, and we do not want to look like a modular structure that's a portable classroom or something like that, we are going to countersink into the ground. And so to answer your question, we are about as close to grade, or I should say, we're about 6 inches below grade to the structure. To the front door threshold, we are at grade. Not sidewalk grade, but at the grade of the site.
Right. So I remembered my question. So I'm gonna go the opposite direction of my colleague and ask about the alignment question to the front setback. So you had mentioned, and I loved your thought, and I agree with your thought about allowing that ability to move away from the sidewalk, take a moment, do some window shopping, if not enter the retail option proper. Are there variations on this theme that you looked at or could look at that take this concept and allow it to come to the zero setback alignment, and that allows for some type of alcove like you would see in a traditional storefront where it might recess itself, offer a bay window or something like that, so that you at least have that capability of stepping off the primary sidewalk and allowing that moment of pause before deciding whether or not to enter the facilities? That's the first question. And then the second is, as you start to talk about that, what are the options for fencing, landscaping, and lighting for this particular project? Because seeing that last image of the existing modular solution that you've already installed in the district, that can't be the way it looks when it's not being programmed, right?
Sure.
It can't show all of that infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's not what we want our experience to be for
Yeah.
guests and residents.
I agree with you 100%. That was a very naked, everything broken down. That was also a pop-up
Understood.
event. It was a special event, so it was not intended to be there for long-term, so we didn't invest a lot. Where I thought you were going with your first question is if the building were to move up to the sidewalk. That also is a possibility that we can explore. In terms of an alcove into the building itself, we're trying to do the best that we can with a very small footprint. So we have 209 square feet, and of that, the net is less than 200 square feet. Our door opens inward, not outward. And so there's really, like, any additional footage that we take away with an alcove basically destroys the functionality of the inside of this micro retail shop. So if you imagine like a 2-chair salon or a barber shop or something like that, what you're describing does occur, but in our small footprint, that's 10% of the entire space.
So as a follow-up to that,
Yes.
that means whomever you're working with from the modular perspective, and I don't know who you're working with.
It's this guy.
Okay, so I'm asking the designer of the modular, is there a solution where you can look at your modular system and offer up that extra space? Because coming forward means you're stepping forward the whole thing. If you leave it at its back wall and move forward, so then you're gaining some square footage. I also know you're trying to be shy of the requirement for plumbing facilities, right?
We're complying with Florida Building Code.
Understood, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. So I understand the other thing. There's some wiggle in there that allows you to still be compliant without having to worry about the plumbing facilities on site, but allows you to reconsider how you negotiate that front setback while still allowing you to have some of those features.
I would say in the future, we might explore the alcove idea. We did not have that in mind for this proposal.
Okay.
And if you would like, I can pull up the images that better show kind of the fencing and the landscaping context that I think that you were talking about. If you'd
Yes,
like to see.
please.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Am I supposed to hit another button like podium or? Okay, there we go. Apologies for the scrolling. So this is part of what actually, you can't see it very well on that, so I see why that is, okay. So on our site plan, we do have metal fencing around the perimeter. We have planters around the perimeter. And that planting style would be akin to like clusia, like you'd see throughout the district. It's been a really good performer for us in Ybor City and our developments. And then, like I said, this outdoor space is like a special, more contained space. In terms of the setback, like I said, I think we could set back some more. We would have to take an additional parking space to do that. But I would say we feel comfortable with the space that we've created out front. But if that was a condition of moving forward, we would definitely entertain it. And then in terms of the fencing itself, again, apologies for scrolling. It's, a pretty straightforward metal fence on the perimeter.
Question. Did you ever take a look at or think about maybe rotating the building and trying to push it as far back as possible and putting all your other elements to the front?
So pushing the back further to the north?
Yeah, to far north as possible, basically, and kind of getting the width of it. And, I know it's a little longer than it is the width of your lease area. But
So if I'm understanding correctly, further back than what the chair?
basically as far back as you can, but then basically rotating the building too. So it's like more oriented east-west, so that we're kind of stepping away from, 7th as much as possible then at that point.
We do have a sketch on future, like if we do expand this concept on this site, we do have a sketch that shows a 90-degree module, because if you think about it again, if you have this parking lot with circulation for the cars, a rotated scheme would actually work well in that regard, because you're not taking up as much of the depth. And so I think in the future we might have a 90-degree scheme like that.
And I'm not sure there's a question for staff or legal, because, looking at our certificate of appropriateness and all that kind of stuff in our motions, I think it's something that I alluded to and Rich kind of alluded to in some of his questions as well. All our motions are for, the permanent life of a building, right? There's nothing really here potentially for like a temporary structure. Is there a way that we can craft a motion where there's an approval with conditions or something like that, where it is within like a 5-year lease or anything like that, that's possible as well?
Hi, Dana Crosby Collier from the City Attorney's Office. I have not seen a certificate of appropriateness for approval of a temporary structure, because based on what you need to find, you need to make certain findings when you make your decision. So I don't know how you make the findings, but find it's only valid for a particular period of time.
Right, yeah.
And I don't know if Dennis wants to add anything.
Good morning, Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Although there are processes for temporary approvals, that's not what is before you today.
Okay.
And you do have the ability to put reasonable conditions, but I don't think a condition would be necessarily terminating a business. This is going to be looked at under Florida Building Code in compliance with accessibility requirements, and he would have the ability to keep that in place as long as it adhered to those requirements.
I have another question for staff while you're up there, Mr. Who's we got one letter from Hinka and one letter from a resident. Do we know who this resident is? The scribbly, I wish people would put their name.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't make that out. I don't know if Mr. Bailey knows who sent that letter.
Sorry. I intentionally stayed out of this process just because, obviously I live in the neighborhood. I'm actually a board member of the Historic Ybor Neighborhood Civic Association. So we did make a presentation to the board, but said that we were recusing ourselves from that process. So we actually have no knowledge of, other than that there were letters sent in.
And we couldn't discern from the email address who actually sent it to us, unfortunately.
Do you have any other questions of the applicant? Okay.
Oh, wait, I do have one.
Oh,
Is signage, is all we're seeing on the glass, is that the only signage that you are going to provide or require for this project? There's not gonna be any like marquee or anything like that on the canopy or the face of the building?
That's a great question too. So we don't have a tenant for this space yet because obviously it's not in place. Our ideal situation is that we would have signage as depicted on the window. I would not be surprised if there's some sort of like, elegant little cut letter sign like up on the canopy. But any type of signage, I believe we'd have to come to staff for approval.
Okay, thank you.
okay, we're done asking questions. You have 5 minutes for rebuttal or summary of your case, address any of our questions that we discussed, and then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Sure. I think I've said this already, but just want to reiterate that what we're proposing is very much in line with the other zones that I mentioned in my presentation regarding small structures that are set back. And I think when you're pondering, like, is this a permanent structure or is this a temporary structure? First of all, it's as permanent as it needs to be. And I would argue, I don't think the same question was asked for any of these structures that were placed into these 3 zones. I don't think anyone was considering the life cycle of those. And I can tell you that many of those structures have changed over the past 10 years, even 20 years. So I don't want to say that permanence is an illusion, but it's a relative thing, and we're here to make this parking lot a better looking thing and contribute to Ybor City, and hopefully you can see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and then we can have discussion on the case. Susan, you want to get us started?
Great. Oh, so many things. I really loved the presentation. I love the discussion points about infill, the process of growth and development. I've lived here a long, long time. I'm not a resident of Ybor, but I certainly know Ybor. I came here when I was in college. So I've actually, been utilizing its amenities for a long time. I have a great love for the urban fabric and the historic fabric, as many of you know who've worked with me before. Infill projects are just, they're exciting opportunities. I love what Mr. Bailey and his wife are trying to do and have done. And I get why they want to be here, because there is this sort of network that's already been started. And maybe it's just because we can't see the future, as you know. I have seen those spaces, those existing spaces, change so much over time. It excites me that there is this activity, this hubbub, when we have both the large scale of full block renovations and new construction, and then these smaller pieces. I just can't see it yet. I'm excited. I think this would be lovely to add into the fabric. I do think the street alignment for me is the bigger selling point. I do like the fact that it's been moved, so there's relief between it and the property to the west. I think when you're talking about a project of this scale and this typology, which to me is an infill project, which means that it isn't necessarily something that I would see lasting 100 years. That's just my professional opinion. The fact that it's modular, even though it can, it more than likely can survive 50 years. It's a valid solution. I love the fact that it's honing in on the idea of the small business, the family businesses, which have been pushed out, which are, there was a certain seafood place that I used to go to that I can't go to anymore, and a local market that I can't go into anymore, and get my local roasted coffee that I have to drive to now. So I miss those things about Ybor. For me, it's the front alignment. I can buy into it for most of it, but the front alignment thing is problematic. My 2 cents.
I agree with my colleague. It seems inconsistent with the design language along 7th Avenue.
I think that's a conundrum for us, right? It's that, I think we all love the project. It's just that the staff report is also right, is inconsistent with everything we kind of see before us. So I don't really know. I think you can go either way. I think whether he recesses it all the way back, or whether he tries to align it more and tries to, try to fit it in a little more with the fabric, either kind of take it away and try to push it back in as far as possible so that we know it's a separate structure, that it's infill and that it's not something that's trying to play as much with something along 7th Ave, or, when we align that and up to the front, then I still think there's a lot of, just the economics of building the structure and trying to design it, there's still gonna be a lot of inconsistencies from, width and height and all that kind of stuff that we'll still kind of see. Maybe there is a way to kind of solve that, creatively in a way to harp on it, but I think it'll be very difficult to do so.
I would like to give them the opportunity to come back with a different solution.
I would as well, yes.
I think what I heard here today is that there are some solutions for future possibilities being kicked around, and I think this is the appropriate time to push some of those forward. Because this is not a corner lot. This doesn't sit on an edge. This is a very hyper-focused main corridor for this district.
It is.
And you're gonna come to this street, the project's gonna be looked at in a very hyper-focused way. And I think giving the opportunity to look at this and come back with another solution is appropriate here.
And I love how he's activating the parking lot, giving it some more use and some
Agreed.
more as well. Because I used to work all the way on the east side, like as far, along the strip on 7th on the east side, and I would walk down to like Carmine's or something like that. And I would always walk past this parking lot. And it always seemed like such a waste.
When La Tropicana was really the place to be
Right,
seen, see and be seen,
Yeah.
that parking lot was always full and it was very active. You bump into people that
Right,
you knew.
right.
But I agree. It's great to see it being activated in a
Right,
different
and
way.
Just to see something.
Yeah, I think this is a tough one. This is a conundrum. We're
Yeah.
balancing two things. I think standalone, the nimble modular building is well designed. You look at it against Demi's Market, and you have alignment of the elements. But when you look at it like this even graphic that we see up on our screen, the site plan, with that yellow square, what happens to the rest of that parking lot? We're activating one corner, right? And then it kind of loses that, and you're activating something out of that space, but not enough. And that's why I was kind of asking the applicant, okay, is there a master plan? What are we gonna do? And I could see something if this whole parking lot was kind of developed, like we look at Gaspar's Grotto or the Carmines, that there was kind of a general plan to develop more of that into like a little shopping village. And I think the applicant has certainly thought of that and how that works, but just this one piece is kind of it's a standalone. It carries some of that rhythm, but it doesn't bring it all the way to the.
I appreciate that, and I do. One thing I noted when we were going through the photo essay at the beginning, when you look at the rhythm in the Sanborn, look at the rhythm, look at the exactly how that was laid out and the ghosts of that and how that might inform that master plan idea. I appreciate that. It's tough to get these little projects going and to find someone who's willing to be a partner. Maybe that partner steps up to the plate a little bit more and you work a little more closely. The big thing for me too is the legal agreements that are underpinning this location. Many times there are business owners that have entered into agreements that keep them compliant. And that parking thing is probably one of them. And I'd want to know that that's free and clear, right? We don't want you to have those hiccups. We don't want to have to spend a lot of time in our hearings discussing something and then there's a hiccup that precludes you from doing something in the first place. Just so that the background legal
Yeah.
processes are clear.
And I think it's also kind of interesting because you look at this as a standalone, right? It's
Yeah.
it's one bay of a typical retail on 7th Avenue, right? You've got a door, an entry, a side window. That's one bay, so the rhythm still works.
Correct.
And maybe this just seems like a lot of property. What happens if there's an infill development further
think
on that's maybe a 25-foot wide that you can kind of tuck this back in there?
That's probably why I'm reacting to it a little bit too, is that it's the reverse of what we normally find.
Right.
We're putting the little tiny infill in before there's actually something for it to glom onto. And I have to say, when Mr. Bailey did his presentation and he was showing the examples of those lovely examples, all of them were alleys. All of them were alleys. Those were not, unless you prove me wrong, those were alley conditions that were being infilled and activated. Except for the one, I know there was one little tiny thing. Anyway, I feel like, it's hard to buy in because it is that reverse process. It's the mass. The void is usually smaller and the mass is bigger, so, anyway. I thought the presentation was great, I just can't buy it all right now.
Well,
Yeah.
if we were to give some sort of preliminary approval, what would that approval be? Because we're not agreeing on massing, scale, or anything like that at this point in time either, right? So how do we even finagle that?
Yeah.
I would
Well,
propose that it's not an approval with conditions.
It's just a continuation then? Can
In
we
my
ask for a
opinion, it's a
continuation then?
continuation,
Yeah.
there's too much.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
A continuation, and what are we looking for? A different site, a bigger
I think
plan
this,
for that
I think
property?
this site is fine, but there's a lot of things that have to happen before they come back with an alternate solution. I mean, they have to take everything we've said into consideration. It's the height, the scale, the mass, all the things that are in the staff report. But then again, in addition to that, it's those concerns about what is that master plan? Even if you don't control the site, what is that master plan? Because what we do here sets some parameters for what goes on
Sure.
in the
And I
site.
think there's enough precedent even within that block that we're looking at
Correct.
right now.
Correct.
Some of the things to follow and how to develop what that could be. In what I'm wrestling with too, and I asked the question, like, is this temporary or permanent? Because if there is a way to do this for X amount of years as like a experimental
Yeah.
type of thing, I think this board would look favorably upon that. It's the permanence, and I
Well,
think that's staff's concerned with,
let's-
hey, you're on 7th Avenue, these are.
Let's talk about the grotto, okay? Many could argue that a lot of those structures in there were temporary,
Sure.
but they've been there quite a while, okay? So your idea of permanence and temporary and testing theories, when we talk about urban conditions, testing theories, we had public housing in place for 60 years that probably should have been pulled down in 3, right? But we let that theory test go on far too long. Not that I think the Gasper's Grotto is the worst thing that you can put in an infill site, but I just want us to be aware of the idea of defining temporary versus permanent. And the fact that under the Florida Building Code, what they're putting in place is allowed to remain as long as it is, compliant, which could be
Well,
50,
I think
60, 70 years.
This definition is a little bit different of temporary because this is a modular unit that can be transported to one site, so it's not.
Yeah, but I don't think they're submitting it as a temporary structure, not like a tent. It's not like, even though it's modular, we've had plenty of examples already in the city of modular construction being allowed for permanent construction. So they aren't asking for permitting. They haven't come before us as a temporary construction, right? So I don't think we can impose anything like that. I think we heard that clearly from legal today. That's something that we're gonna have to, maybe have a sidebar workshop with the city and other historic district boards, maybe. That's my opinion.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. There's been a lot of good discussion amongst the board members this morning. I've been speaking with the agent. I think you could, if you allow to open up the public hearing to address some of the concerns, to see if he wants an up or down vote or a continuation with the discussion that took place.
We have a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Bailey.
Hello again. So I guess I'm supposed to propose what I would like to do? Is that, the public hearing should be open so I can just, okay.
You can address any of the things that we discussed if you want to clarify those and give us a proposed direction.
So, again, I appreciate everything that everyone has contributed today, but it sounds like we're close. In terms of the conditions, I just want to make sure that I'm clear that if I do agree to continue, that the conditions are clear to me in agreeing to do the continuance. So some of the things that I've heard is clarity around the legal agreement, regarding the legal agreement that's in place in conjunction with the parking operation. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, for the record, sorry.
And then, I know there was a conversation about permanent versus temporary, and yes, we are applying for this as a permanent structure. And yes, I agree with the discussion around, you know, what's in Gaspar's Grotto could be permanent, could be temporary. I guess the other condition is there a consensus of moving the building back? Is that what the commission is asking me to explore?
I don't know. Yeah, I think the discussion went both ways with, you know, moving it forward or moving it back. I don't know, I think that's for you to propose, based on the feedback that you heard today. I can't give you a clear direction on that, but
Okay.
I think you heard some of our concerns of the placement and how it works with the corresponding elements on that block.
Okay. In terms of a master plan, we can present that. Obviously, I don't control those market conditions. I don't control the future. I don't control any of the negotiation of that. So I could just kind of tell you, conceptually, this is what we have in mind. And again, the goal is to add activity along 7th Avenue and not just have this bleak asphalt parking lot up against kind of a world-renowned street. So are there any other conditions the commission has in mind?
I think we talked about the graphic showing the nimble fit in with the entire block.
So like the full elevation
I think
of
that
the,
would,
yeah,
help.
okay. So I guess I'm requesting a continuance to November 18th.
That's the 19th, right, Ron?
It's the 18th.
Oh,
Oh, excuse me, that's
yeah.
2025. November 19th.
Yes.
All right, so move to grant a continuance for.
Don't we have to close the public hearing again?
Oh.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, it's all good.
All in favor of closing the public hearing? Well, do we want a motion? Yeah, we'll close the public hearing. Do we want to
So
have
technical.
any other, do we need to have any other discussion, or we can move into a motion?
I have no other, yep.
So move to grant a continuance to BLC 2400000170 to the, was it November 18th?
19th.
November 19th, public hearing at 9 a.m.
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to continue.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Okay, can we have a motion to accept into the record the exhibits presented today?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And seeing no other business in front of us, we are adjourned. Thank you all for your time today.
Thank you.